Wait, that didn't go through. It was still 1 second till the video started transmitting,
Oh, damn
but
it.
now it's going through. Hi
Oh,
guys.
the one good
Welcome
joke I
back.
hadn't.
I mean, you could tell it again. They didn't hear it the first time.
Oh, the moment's passed now. The audience will just have to live in wonder of what was I going to say.
Apologies, chat. You just missed the one joke of the night. That's
Yeah,
all we've got.
it's
Yeah.
over now, I guess. So I guess we can just stop.
Yeah.
How's everybody doing this week?
Um, I've been having a bit of anxiety the past couple of days, unfortunately.
Oh.
But today I've been doing somewhat better, at least good enough to do this today.
Oh,
Good.
glad to hear it. Yeah. Glad to hear it.
How about you guys? How have you been doing?
Do you want to go first? B, picture lady?
Knackered. It has been an exhausting week. Good lord.
What about
I
our
think-
cowboy or cowgirl even?
You know what the thing is? The worst thing for me is that, like, in the middle of a global pandemic, and I find that my life hasn't changed at all. Like, apparently I was always a friendless shut-in because, like, I never left my house anyway. So,
Don't worry.
like, yeah,
I'm on
even
the
now I'm
same
under
boat.
like, yeah, even now I'm under lockdown. It's just, well, this just feels like a normal weekend.
Yeah, I'm on the
So
same
yeah,
boat. I think we're all on the same boat, to be fair.
yeah.
Although I can't speak for everyone either way.
I have children. That makes it a whole other fiasco.
Oof.
Oof.
You just throw a toy at their way, right? That should distract you for a couple hours.
I wish they were still that small and distractible quite regularly.
I mean, if somebody's got some keys they want to jangle, that'll keep me distracted.
Just tie it to a fishing
Fishing rod.
Yeah, that's it. Fishing rod.
No, it's alright. We've thrown any ideas of soliding parenting principles out the window, and now if we can get through the schoolwork, they can have the screens. That's the bar is real low.
All right. Well, you've heard our guest, no doubt. It's Caitlin.
Hey, gamers!
The cowgirl of our realm. I think probably the only cowgirl in the realm.
Yeah.
I don't know of any others.
Neither do I. That's why I'm saying that. But don't take my word for it. Maybe there's another one out there.
Some people say that one is one too many already.
They are wrong.
And obviously we have Meraki.
Hello, back again.
God, I can't get rid of her.
I know, right? Every week he tries, but it never works.
Yeah, just somehow
Don't
managed to sneak into the chat.
When the stream ends, she just sits in place quietly, waiting for next week. You know what I mean? Doesn't move, just waits for the next one.
Oh no! I think I have a stalker problem.
Yeah.
All right, what's on the menu for this week?
Yeah, hosting events this week. I think we've done this in the past, right, with prior iterations. But yeah, we're covering stuff again. So I mean, if we haven't
to be fair,
something,
I'm pretty sure there's some stuff in this list that hasn't come up last time. And I know we got a few community questions about it this time that I don't think we got last time. So, and you know that there's always that sensation of once you've done something, you're like, oh yeah, we should have said this, we should have done that, we should have talked about this. So
yeah,
I
think there's always a bit of value in revisiting things.
Yeah, Sorry, go on.
Go ahead if you want to.
I was just going to say, with only thinking of what you should have said long after the moment's passed. Yeah, I have won so many arguments in my head, like a day after it's finished.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No. I think we all have. We've all won arguments in our head that we completely, absolutely did not win in real life.
My shampoo bottles think I am a debating champion. When I'm winning arguments in the shower.
Don't worry, I've won plenty as well, and I count them as a win because they're inside my head.
Absolutely.
All right, starting off with this, I guess the best way to start off would be the different type of events you can run.
Because
which
there are different types of. To be fair, like I was just thinking about this in the car today, and like even between me and you, Fuse, we run because you've run events of a scripted, directed server campaign style, whereas the things that I tend to run tend to be much more low key, organic, like bar style events where I just show up and roleplay my character in the vicinity of other people roleplaying.
Ooh, hello, gamers. I thought I'd get in on the stream thing.
I think I've actually done one of each that's on this list here.
Yeah, there's a bunch of
What was that
different
sound?
types.
I just heard
Is that
some
a
whine in the
folklore?
background for some reason. Yeah, I
a
don't know what that
horde?
was. Right. Obviously, there's the normal, gilded sort of events where you have your guild mates. You have a little story, to host between them. I mean, it could be a story. It could just be casual role play.
And that could probably take the form of either like a single standalone event or a series of events in a longer story or plot.
I like to call them a series of unfortunate events because someone always comes out hurt. Obviously, there's campaigns. So this can obviously fall just between guild as well, which is, as Meraki mentioned, a series of them, or like a community sort of a campaign.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you're really brave, you can throw a campaign out there to the whole server.
There's different types of those as well.
I've done a few of those.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of work and a lot of guts to do those kind of things. I admire anyone that honestly does server level stuff because it must be terrifying and impossible to do.
It does. You need a lot of spare time and a very patient wife or husband if you're going to do something like that. Yeah. Fortunately, I don't. You know what I mean? I have a lot of spare time and no girlfriend, so I have all the time for WoW.
I've done 3 of them myself in total, I believe, unless I'm missing one. I've done the Legion sort of, introduction with all the invasions. I've done Close to Home, which is more like a campaign orientated around the Night Elf community, where we had demons sort of invading Darkshore and we were fighting against them. And Crimson Compass, which was basically undead pirates.
Awesome.
I think my best one was probably the middle one.
I've run a few, but I like to run. I call them like mini campaigns, where it's sort of like it's like a storyline that basically will last for like seven days or more, like usually between 7 and 12 days. And what I do is I sort of like take one guild out at a time, like one different guild out at a time each night to like fill in a piece of the puzzle, if that makes sense. And then like on the last day, they all sort of like get together for a big kind of Avengers Assemble kind of thing against like whoever the big bad guy is of the campaign, if that makes sense.
Can't believe you have the Avengers on your event, jeez.
Oh, absolutely, mate. Yeah, Captain. Let me tell you, Captain America really is the ass of America. But yeah, that's sort of the campaigns that I've kind of run, and I find that they're quite good because, like, rather than like trapping everyone in like a small zone for a while, like you can take people out all over the world, but then they still get that cross guild collaboration at the end. Does that make sense?
It's an easier way to handle as well. Speaking from the experience of having like several groups with like 40 people.
Yes, it has doing campaigns that way has definitely saved my hairline. From stress. Although I do just want to say one thing. I think it was, lady with the B icon. What's your name?
Katie.
Oh, I don't know if I can pronounce that. Can I just call you B lady?
You can just call me B lady.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Are you sure? But yeah, because I think you or someone said something like, events can be like kind of like just casual social role play, but personally, I think that, and this is just a me thing, I'm willing to be wrong here. Personally, I think that events are almost like the opposite of that, if that makes sense. Like, to my mind, an event is where you do something that's a bit more out of the ordinary and sort of like takes you out of that sort of like just socializing role play kind of thing. Does that, am I being weird, or does that make sense?
Well, consider the tavern type things that we do as events purely because they have a time and a place.
Oh, right. Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Yeah, no. Oh, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
As like a calendar style event type, rather than an actual eventful thing happening, but it could be either. And to be fair, the events I think we're talking about today run more to that than the more casual social things.
But yeah, but no, there's all sorts of different ways to do campaigns. Although I will be helping to DM out in a like the big single zone campaigns people run, and I'd love to run one of those myself one day, if only I had the manpower and money to do it. But as a one-man band DM, I think that would probably kill me.
That's probably why I haven't done as many events lately. Just the whole idea of diving in back one man and just all the stress that comes with it. To be honest, most of the time it's the OOC stuff that causes your hairline to fall, But unfortunately, it's a part of running campaigns. You have to also moderate the community you're running it for.
Yeah. Although I do agree with what Logar. God, I wish I could read. Logar Oriellen said. Yeah. I do, and what Aslan Goat says. That personally, as a man who runs my own guild, cough. It's called the Dust Devils. It's really good. I swear, cough. Doing about two events a week, if you're a one-person DM, I think is ideal because it gives you time to plan and prepare them in between. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when I do these mini campaigns, I end up doing about one every day for 7 days, and trust me, you feel that by the end of it, and it feels good, but it does also age you about 30 years. Like, I'm only 30 years old, but I currently look 60. You know what I mean? So.
To be honest, we're talking about each anyway. But speaking of the mention of the compass, actually, I think that's where it failed. Really, I didn't have that much manpower helping me behind it. Not to complain that the manpower I had was bad; it was great. But there was quite a lot of people, and it was hard to kind of.
Not enough for the size of the event turned out to be. I think everybody saw pirates and was like, "Let's get on board."
Yeah, I'd love to. I have contemplated a few times bringing back a Crimson Compass, sort of like 2 or something like that, because I want to do the event right. I think it'd be cool to have this undead pirate sort of campaign,
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I haven't found the willpower to do it yet. But comparing it to the one I've been most happy with, which was close to home, I had the Myrmidon Guild, which was a lot of people running the events and knowing what they're doing. So it was easier to kind of moderate that. It felt a lot more fluid, There wasn't me struggling to find, okay, where do I go next? What do I do here? With so many places,
Yeah.
So why run events then?
Oh, we missed 2 things, by the way.
What did we miss?
Community run events is obviously community based, so it could be, for example, a Caesar calendar, like just for night elves, that sort of thing, or maybe the Forsaken have some just Forsaken one. It differentiates the public events in the sense that public is sort of for everyone,
See what you mean? Yeah, sorry. Yep.
And obviously that kind of falls in line with social as well. Don't know why I split up there, but but yeah, now, why do we run an event? What purpose does it serve?
Because we are suckers for punishment, and we just love putting ourselves out there to fail.
Sadistic, inherent sadistic traits.
Exactly, that's it. You know what I mean? No, I think it's because it's like, if you've got like and this is going to sound really, really cheesy, but I think it's because we've got like a story that we want to tell. And it's like, we basically, my thing is I always wanted to write for Doctor Who, but the BBC would never respond to my messages. So, I do the next best thing, which is run events on World of Warcraft. And I think that's it,
They'll recognize your genius one day.
One day they will. One day,
they'll join your events and they'll be like, we want that guy.
Yeah. I'll get that ping on Twitter that'll say, "Hey Joe, nice WoW event. Considered writing for us." But no, the main reason I run events is because I've got like a load of sometimes. I mean, this kind of comes in later about how you plan events, but sometimes I'll be flying around Azeroth out of character, and you'll see something, you'll think, "Damn, that's really cool," and then you'll start thinking, "Oh, and what you could, what I mean?" You sort of build a story around it, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, now I've got this story, I might as well share it with someone. So that, I think, is a big reason why people do events. Yeah. Because you've got a story that you want to share with people, basically.
Yeah. I mean, that's the main drive behind it, really. you get the idea, you want to tell that story, and honestly, as long as you have a basic idea, you don't need to have like an overly complicated one.
Actually, the same core motivation for all role plays. You have a story, you have a character that has a story, and you want to share that with the world, and you want to see how interacting, like putting that out there and interacting with other people, changes it or develops it or grows it into something new. Like the basis of all role play, but then this is it's about a particular thing.
It could be something as simple as someone's dog getting stolen, and you spend a series of events following clues, trying to find it. But
it's also, I think, a great way to bring a group together.
Yes.
Like, especially, you'll notice, like, a lot of times, we don't run an awful lot of events, but when we do, it'll generally be at times like after the holidays, when people are like have been off for a while, or they're kind of scattered, they're a bit inactive and things, and having events will give them a reason to get back into the pull of things, get the snowball rolling again, as it were.
Yeah. And also, I just want to pick on something that Az, thank you for giving that pronunciation help there, Az. I just want to pick on something that Az has just said in the chat. Yeah, finding a cool proxy and finding an excuse to use it is one of the best hooks for an event. 1000% agree with that. And I think that sort of like leads into another reason why people run events, or at least why I do, because it's like you see all these really cool places out there in Azeroth and you think, why is nobody role-playing in this? Do you know what I mean? Like why is nobody using this? So you sort of like, it's almost an excuse to actually get out into those really cool places and actually get some use out of them. Do you know what I mean?
You explore them all. You see them all when you're leveling. Well, I suppose not so much these days, but if you were ever leveling way back in the olden days, you saw a lot of the world while you were leveling. But then once you'd finished leveling, you had no reason to really go back there. So it's really nice to have a reason to revisit those spots, because there's some awesome places in the world.
Exactly. There really are.
That is recommended as well. Exploring the world a bit, you might get the idea of what to do there, because there's a lot of stories intertwined in each area as well to kind of pull from. For example,
if you are someone who has leveled recently, go and take a look at the zones you've maybe brushed through really quickly, or the ones that you didn't like fully explore, or ones that you missed entirely, because there's some really cool little corners out there.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you can do stuff with Quillbore in the Barrens, or you can do stuff with Knolls in Westfall, or there's a lot of like stuff you can use around the area, pretty much.
I've used that.
And when in doubt, just use cultists.
Yeah. I mean, I'm quite guilty for shall we say, bending the law sometimes. So one of my favorite places to use is if you go to the Broken Isles, there's loads like those, those like massive Legion Star Destroyers.
Yeah.
Like the big spaceships, and they are so much fun to use in events and stuff like that. Like again, you sort of have to use them as something slightly different. So it's like, oh, it's something else, but there's so much fun you can have there. Like there's a place it's not in the Broken Isles, but there's a place kind of like it that's got all the green goop and stuff, and there's like inside a cave, there's a big prison, and then there's some buildings lying around, and that's really cool to use for events. I've run a few good ones there, and Uldum as well is always hilarious.
Uldum's got a lot of like cool temples and stuff to
really
use. Yeah.
And the best thing as well is, because I remember, didn't the devs once say that like Azeroth is a lot bigger than it's seen in game? So
there's a lot of like conflicting comments in that, unfortunately. Sometimes they're like, it's that small. Other times they're like, nah, there's a bit more space, But I don't think they kind of know what their world is going on at the moment.
Yeah,
there's one thing that always stands out to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that physiologically and biologically, these are sentient beings that obviously have food and drinks that they eat in the game, so they obviously have some kind of digestive tract, yes. And yet there is very, very, very few toilets in World of Warcraft. I think the nearest toilet to Quel'Thalas might be Outlands.
Why do you think Stormwind is like the stinkiest city?
So my feeling is that there has to be some suspension of disbelief in terms of the world that is presented versus the world that should exist in the lore. Because again, the dev team have limits. Human and computer capacity has limits to what they can provide, and we have to use our imaginations to fill the rest.
Yeah,
I can just imagine the man who built Stormwind being like, well, we have a tram, we have a mighty palace for our king. Is there anything we forgot?
A toilet.
Yeah. Have you built any toilet? It's like, you should have played an old game, Theme Park World, where that little bug thing would appear in the corner and be like, well, your park is great, but you haven't built a single toilet. It's like that.
God. How to torture your park.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, you got your stuff to kind of why run it and what purpose does it serve. There is bring people together, telling a story, that sort of thing. But well, planning your event is what you want next, really. Who's your audience, Let's use Caitlin here to suggest what their audience is for their guild and how they plan around them.
My audience of the one person who comes to my events because their mum made them. No.
Hey, at least there's one person, right?
Well, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Don't tell them it's me on an alt. No. No, the audience of an event, that's a good one. To my mind, my audience is literally anyone who I can, anyone who's willing to come along. I will grab literally anyone and everyone for my events. Like I've become quite notorious in Orgrimmar for like harassing people having a drink. Like, yeah, you could be having a drink or you could be saving the world. They're like, madam, please, this is a Wendy's. But yeah, I think but I do think I understand what you mean with audience, because like the people who like all my events are like really quite big action adventure kind of Attack on the Death Star scale kind of things, and I like know some people who prefer like smaller scale sort of like social role play who might not be into that. So I think you will eventually find an audience, but that's still quite a broad net, if you know what I mean.
I think worth considering, if you're considering running an event for a specific group of people, it's worth bearing in mind, at least to the most vague and general ideas, that what that group do. For example, like your group are more military, whereas my group are civilian. So if you approach them with like a military contract, they'd be like, you've got the wrong building.
Yeah.
This is not for us.
We're all going to die, aren't we? Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if you approach them with a heist, they'll consider it.
Absolutely, this is where you need to be. We've got the people, But so it's worth considering your audience, just so that you're not completely coming at them with something that's just not going to interest those characters, or that those characters just won't really give a crap about.
Yeah.
But to be fair, you could also do it if you really think it's going to work, because it could be an interesting way for those characters to kind of interact with something they wouldn't normally interact with. If you think
you've got a really bomb event idea, there is absolutely a way you can work around anything. Like, you could get my guys into a military situation, no problem, if you give them the right incentive.
For example, you've got criminals, or like sneaky sort of lots in the guild. They could be used to try, get information, kind of go around behind the enemy lines. They wouldn't be expecting some random civilian to do it, would they?
That's kind of one of the things that I love about roleplay in general, is just that there isn't really, you can stereotype things in a very generalized idea, but when a push comes to shove, if you're out there with a creative mindset, you can invent, create, or write your way around those kind of things really pretty easily when you think about it.
Yep. Absolutely. And if that doesn't work, there's always bribery and coercion.
If the price is right.
Yeah. Hey, come into this very deadly situation and I'll give you my respect.
I don't need
that's one that Caitlin used a lot. Is your respect worth anything, Caitlin? Well, in this economy. But yeah, so I think audience, but audience. I forgot where I was going with that.
It kind of varies with the guild or group you've got.
Yeah, but I definitely think B-Lady is 100% correct. If you play it right, you can really pretty much pitch anything to anyone, really. And as
you just need to have the right pitch.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about the pitch. Yeah, it's all about the pitch. Like, all about the pitch. Like, there's this. I'm going to name drop here. There's this civilian Forsaken guild called the Forlorn Order, and they're like quite it's not my guild, but they're quite like a social kind of civilian role play guild out in Silverpine Forest. They're probably, if they're listening to this, they're probably going to butcher me for really badly describing them here. But they
like, what now?
Yeah. Well, what? If you're listening, I know, and I'm sorry, but like I've got them to come along to a few of my like really high fantasy action adventure events through like pitching it as sort of like, hey, if we don't stop these bad guys from destroying the world, there won't be a sepulture anymore.
They'll eat you like next, so let's go.
Yeah, it'll be you next, civilian. So yeah, that always works. Yeah. Or something out of the character's control. Absolutely well done. Yeah, you can absolutely do it where it's something that like happens.
It could be like a book or something, a magical book that kind of pulls you into it. You know, it could be something random like that. You have magic in World of Warcraft. Just use magic.
Yeah, absolutely. Magic solves everything. A wizard did it. There we go. Or my favourite way to start events is I'm a big fan of the you wake up somewhere strange and mysterious kind of thing, where I'll like talk to the players beforehand and say, right, at some point you're out of character going to get kidnapped and brought here, and this is where you wake up. And then they literally don't have a choice but to be the audience. You know
How many times does that happen? Have to happen though before that person just doesn't sleep anymore, scared to fall asleep?
Yeah, they never even log off WoW. They just emote that they're constantly aware. You know what I mean?
You'll never kidnap me again.
Yeah, you're never kidnapping me again.
Yeah. It could also be a random teleport. You know, someone pulled you out from space or some shit. You know.
There's loads and loads that could happen. And speaking of portals, that is the way that I usually start event, by a wee portal into the area, because I think that way you can like start in some, like I have dropped my guildies into all sorts of stuff. Like, you know, you get in the portal and it goes wrong and you fall out here into a pit of snakes or into lava.
I'm not saying it's a contributing factor to why my guildies tend to not favor too kindly towards military events, but when Warlords of Draenor launched, it took us a long time to try and work out a way we could get our mostly civilian guild interested in the actual content of this expansion, and we were really, really struggling. We eventually worked out a really harebrained excuse. We didn't know how long it was going to hold up. So on the night we were set to launch it off, and they got to go into the portals, I dropped it on them. I was like, so these are pretty intense conditions, and our portal mage is trying to, you know, conjure a portal under these pretty intense conditions. So everybody roll. And I put everybody below 50 to one place, and everybody above 50, middle of the wilderness.
Yeah, that's how I do it, Chief. It is a tried and tested measure. Yep.
Yeah, obviously you got the general direction as well. We kind of spoke about that in the sense that you can make it happen with anything. Honestly, you can be as creative as you want. World of Warcraft has a lot of room for that kind of storytelling. Obviously, you want to know the rough length of it, and the length of it can change.
I think that is a point that gets overlooked very often. The length of the events and the length of the arc in general. I think you have to actually put a bit of thought into that, because generally when you're planning it, you're going to think this will take 2 or 3 hours, and it will actually take 6.
Yeah, and you have to do a two-parter of that. Yeah. But it can also take shorter than that as well at times. It really you have to take into account the people you're hosting.
Have you ever been at an event that has taken shorter than the allotted time in your entire career?
Yes. What? Because everyone kept rolling too high.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
We don't have that problem where I'm from.
This was ages ago, though. But yeah, that can be a factor into it as well. Which obviously goes on to the next point. Prepare to improvise, because don't overplan is the main thing, by the way, because you're going to have to prepare to improvise. That you're playing for players who unfortunately will go left instead of right at one point.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And sometimes more than other times. So I would always, like, if you're writing out how you think a story is going to go, I'd always then go back to the start and read through it and just think about how it would go if you deliberately pick a contrary thing to do at every choice point.
Yeah.
Because someone will sooner or later.
Yeah. One of the things that I do when sort of like design events is I like find and I'll talk about this more a bit later, but like I find like 5 or 6 sort of key areas that I'm going to use as like a story beat, if that makes sense. It's like, this will happen at this point and then that'll happen, but then like I'll try and plot like a few different ways between them all, just in case they or what I can do if they miss out a piece. Does that kind of make sense?
And if they do start going off to the left, how you're going to get them back.
Yeah, how are we going to get them back? Or how are we going to continue it on? Yep, I've had numerous events where I've like set up these grand combat scenes, and then they've just decided to talk their way through. So I'm like, all right, do it.
Roll the charm, dice.
Yeah, rule of charm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Or when you set up like a really difficult obstacle and you're like, haha, you'll never get past this, and then somebody rolls 100 and it's like, oh, well, all right then, I guess you did.
So yeah, be ready to improvise. Have a few ideas on hand if you can for anything that you think they might derail on. But even then, just be ready to improvise, because they'll find somewhere else.
Yeah. Have a plan B and C. Plot your event out, then as we've said, go back and sort of like plot alternative routes as well.
That's how I think I probably got good at improvising events, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like just the players really just turning it upside down, and sometimes making the event end the way you would never expect.
Improvising on the fly.
Yeah. Hold on a sec. Sorry, I just had to cough there. But yeah, prepare to improvise really is pretty much the main point there.
Once you have that, you've got your audience, you know what kind of event you're running, you know the general direction it's going to go, you've got the rough length of it, you're ready for those deviations to take place. Then you have to kind of flesh it out, like actually get your method and the meat on the bones, as it were.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
There's a few ways to do that. There's a few ways to, and there's not often, but sometimes it can be quite a contentious topic, particularly if it comes to events that are between guilds, rather than against environments, as to whether you're going to roll or you're going to what roll system are you using, because there's a bunch of different ones out there, or are you going to free emote, or are you going to go purely game mechanics based?
Here, I'm going to speak for what I prefer when it comes to role mechanics and stuff like that. I think role mechanics should only be used when it's a surprise element. If I trust the group enough, I will have them free emote in combat a lot of the times, and I'll trust them enough to not pretend to be a god and just sort of rush in there, take down 50 guys just by swinging a mace, fortunately enough, I do have a close enough group to kind of trust people with that as it is, if I wanted to, run it that way. But honestly, the best way to approach it is a mixture of both of it, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't want to kind of make people feel as if their whole character arc depends on a good role, because you kind of want to give them the freedom to RP the character the way they are as well, without depending on
and a lot of times role systems can, to counterbalance that, sometimes you'll have like more complex role systems that will allow you to roll, but to try and preserve your character's integrity, they'll allow you to get like almost like buffs, like bonuses to certain roles. If that character is good at combat, you get a bonus to it, so that you have less chance of their entire character characteristics being nuked by a bad roll. If the character's meant to be really good at combat and they roll a 2, you're like, well, I don't know how to explain that, because he should be really good in this scenario. So, but at the same point, that then gets into like very complicated systems, because you're adding numbers, you're rolling for this, you're adding buffers, you're taking those away, and it can get quite complicated. And I can get lost in those kind of things, so I imagine other people can too.
100% the same. It's like I can't count how many times I failed maths at school, and that's because I kept failing maths, so I can't count anyway. But I remember I was once in this guild on the Alliance, and don't get me wrong, I can't even remember the name anymore. They were lovely people, but I felt like every time I wanted to roll, I had to send off to NASA to calculate the result. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because it can get quite complicated very quickly. Because when you think you have 20 people rolling attack and defense and adding modifiers.
And it really, really, for one thing, it slows things down, but it can also, for me, always took me out of the game, because I was always like, well, damn, now I need to like carry the 1 here, and
you're doing maths rather than story.
Yeah. So that's why in the role system I use for my events is literally just a roll over X to win. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I can raise or lower whatever the X is depending on what it is. But I think that's quite good because it means that like sorry for rambling on this one. It's just one thing I found in combat situations is that, like in events we let people have loads of modifiers. It meant that certain people always beasted combat, and other characters always got their asses kicked. Whereas I find that if you sort of have a flat thing, it means that everyone's got a chance of actually being able to do something. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it also means that, like, say you come to a door and you've got a really good lockpick character, it means sometimes it might fail, which then means someone else can just come up and go, well, I'll have a go, and bang their head into it, and oh, look, it opens.
Yeah, I think it's good. Like with my guild, because we all know each other, we all know the characters. We generally don't do rolls unless it's something like that where there is an element of the unknown involved, like Fuse said at the start there. You know, just to add a little bit of a random roulette roll to the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you can make those into story, but I wouldn't get, if you do decide to go with rolls, if you are DMing for a group that you don't particularly know, and just to keep it fair, you've gone with the roll system, don't get too hung up on the rolls.
Yeah.
Don't let the rolls overpower the story. Everybody's here for the story, not the Maz.
Honestly, you got to take into fact the surprise element is a factor that can kind of punish the character or even make the character, you know, being ahead somewhere for some reason. Say on back to perks though, you can also make simple perk systems which also help with those roles, which we had in the Myrmidon. We had like ones for like actually no, we had personalized ones and they were pretty easy to follow, but it might be because we were in like a pretty tight knit sort of small guild, you know, like 5 or 6, no, not 5 or 6 players, but at most we had like 10 or something. They often helped kind of you know, stomp down on the speciality of a character. For example, with my mage Ursula, she was very good illusionist, so she'd get bonus rolls on like illusion based spells. So one event we had her, unfortunately it wasn't a perfect roll, but a good enough to roll to kind of mimic the copy of their ship, like sailing side by side to kind of confuse the enemy. Those sort of things kind of help also kind of, you know, put the character's special qualities in place at times as well. So I mean, I wouldn't throw perks out the window.
No, those can be, and I mean they can be super useful. For example, when we do the fight club, we generally just do like a straight roll for each round, 3 rounds straight roll, and that's it. And because it's normally all between fighters anyway, so like you'll kind of have the same chances of winning. So we just do a straight roll just to keep the kind of element of luck in it. But when it comes to a character that's very obviously, for example, we had my little character was there one week and he very obviously was not up to par with the rest of the people there. So we gave him a negative to his rolls because it would literally make no sense if he was winning.
My favorite role, I remember from I think Stellaris, like beach sort of event, an orc losing to a gnome in an arm wrestle. I think it was actually Gorek that lost.
Something to be said for the story being in there being potential for story in those things as well.
Yeah. I mean, the gnome could have had magic involved, or could have had some sort of mechanized.
Maybe it was rigged.
Yeah, maybe it was rigged.
On steroids.
Everyone was betting on the orc to win. Maybe the gnome bet on himself so he could win big. They were both in on it, you know. But you know that sort of like consideration to those things is best way to go forwards, really. I think we kind of explained the player input. Obviously, with improvising, you have the players to deal with.
Player input and improvising are basically very similar.
You just have to kind of deal with the potential of them pulling the wrong levers, going the wrong way, or trying to befriend the ogre rather than kill the ogre, you know?
Roll to seduce the dragon.
Hey, if it's an option.
I've seen it happen.
Listen, if it's there, you can seduce it. That is the golden rule.
Good old D&D.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't think that'd work with Lyrexia, unfortunately.
Not with that attitude.
obviously there's also the potential of outside people kind of interfering with it. The simplest way to deal with that oftentimes is talking with them. Maybe you can sort of resolve a way where you use one spot, they use another spot,
Oh yeah.
and you don't bump
Yeah,
into each other.
we've talked about this a little bit before, I think, and I can't remember what the topic was to reference it now because I'm terrible. But anyway, worth noting as well, if you try to speak to them, a lot of times they will just stop. If they don't just stop, then remember that you can't report them unless you've already asked them to stop. I think it's written into the Blizzard TOS somewhere, but you have to politely ask them to stop what they're doing before your report will be considered.
It depends on the interference. So if it's another
group
of
yeah, no, if it's something like outright racism, sexism, homophobia, harassment, any of that kind of stuff, that's just a straight report and should be a straight ban. But if it's something like harassing roleplay, like interfering with roleplay and stuff, they tend tends to not be so obvious. So you have to kind of.
Honestly, as well, with stuff like that in particular, reporting and ignoring it works best. Really, they'll get bored eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we get plenty of them in and around the tavern, and if you literally straight up everyone in the room ignores them, it doesn't take them 5 minutes to get bored when they realize they're not getting a rise.
Yeah. I mean, I spent a while RPing under someone standing on me with a yak, and they got bored eventually because they saw that I wasn't moving and still continuing with my conversation. But yeah, there's also the fact that you can also kind of clash with someone else's event. I mean, it happens now and again, right?
Yeah, it couldn't not even be a case of it being outright, just people trying to be disruptive to your roleplay. It could just be a genuine clash of organizations. Someone else could be holding an event in the same place.
Yeah. The worst the worst example I've ever had of this, of like accidentally clashing with somebody else's roleplay event. I was running a really low bendy event around No Moragan, because like No Moragan has that big underground bunker thing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I was using that to represent some sort of loyalist super weapon, as I do, and because I watched Star Wars once and thought, yes, I want to do that. More of that, please. Yeah, I'm quite notorious for just role playing my loyalists as like Star Wars style villains. But anyway, but we landed like outside the gates of No Moragan, like just where the zone starts, and we're all like, oh, split up and start shooting and everything you see. And around the corner there were these like just gnome role players role playing quite innocently in a tavern, and all of a sudden they see in their text box Horde yelling in mysterious languages they don't understand, and the one guy who must have had a tongue pot on said the words "kill them all." So they were like, "Oh crap!" So yeah, I can just imagine this place like burst into chaos, and they started yelling back at us, and I'm like, "Oh no!" So I'm like, I had to like desperately leap onto Discord, and God bless him, this guy, he's got the patience of a saint. I'm leaping onto Discord like, "Hey, Ryder, my good man, we're not actually here, I see." And he's like, "So where are you, I see?" I'm like, "It's a long story, but
not here, not crashing your tavern, not going to kill everyone. Apologies for the confusion."
Yeah, we're not actually going to kill you. So God bless him. I think what he did is, I think that he pretended that the yells from the Horde were coming in the opposite direction and just ran off down the other path. But yeah, I think the best thing to do if you do land in an area where your roleplay is going to clash a little bit with someone else is try to talk to the character about it and see if you can come to some sort of agreement. Do you know what I mean?
Don't force don't strong arm your way into it, because that's when drama kind of involves itself.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, everybody has a right to the space, so we have to learn to share.
Yeah, sharing is caring.
Basic sharing.
Roll it back to that one video where the girl responds with, "But I don't care."
Yeah.
Honestly, it's just communication when you're dealing with those outside interferences. We do have a few questions that were sent our way. If you want to ask more whilst we're answering these, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Let's do question time.
Our first question is, what's the absolute worst event you've attended and what went wrong?
Oh,
that could be a spicy question.
Yeah, I can tell you the absolute worst event I've ever ran.
I can tell you the worst event I've attended, and it was recently because it's still fresh in my mind.
Oh, you start then, brother.
But I don't want to. I won't say what specific. I'll just say why it was the worst event, and it was due to the nature of the roles and kind of to the point the roles became so heavily influenced in it. Everyone kept rolling low, and there was like something as silly as drowning in a pond.
Oh God, it wasn't my event, was it?
No. The characters could have just as easily just swum out. It felt too heavily influenced by the roles, really.
Yeah, if the role system you have is of such a degree that it can break the story, it's probably too much.
I did get bored, and I was venturing this point. Okay, well, my character's knocked out cold. Bye.
Yeah, I think. I think just got with the role thing. I think like roles should be there to like put people in danger, but if they're ever going to be a point
to add an element of surprise.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I can't remember the worst event I've ever attended. But if you've got a story, be lady person.
No, I genuinely can't remember the worst event I've ever attended. I've been attending like things since the Borderlands on Argent Dawn, which was many, many moons ago for the old timers in chat. I can't think of a particularly bad one.
It'd be my event if you went to it.
Yeah.
Do you know, I don't think we made it to... I think we made it to like the start of the compass thing.
Yeah.
And then something happened, and we didn't make it any further.
I might still consider bringing it back at some point. Who knows?
You should. The concept was really, really good. Yeah. It was really strong.
I can tell you the worst event I've ever DM'd though.
Go for it.
Yeah. Have you finished your story, Few? Sorry.
Yeah. No, I don't DM. I don't DM events. That's probably why I've not been to too many bad events.
Mine's as simple as just the roles were just too heavily influenced in it and kind of brought me out of the event.
Well, for me, it was because I've been DMing now for about 2.5 years. And I feel really, really lucky because in that time I've only ran like 3 events that have gone wrong, but by God, do they stay with me? Like in my night terrors, instead of seeing shadow people, I see these 3 events flashing before my eyes. Yeah, they haunt me like the Christmas ghosts from Charles Dickens. And like one of them was really, really bad because it was one of the events that I did, and bless him, it wasn't the player's fault. I think it was mine. I did this event where it was one of the you wake up in a strange location events, but the idea was that some of the people there would have had their sort of like can't remember who they are. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And like my events are always quite even when it's really dangerous, like the darkest my events shall ever go is like Doctor Who, but this one lady, God bless her, she roleplayed her character breaking down in floods of tears because she couldn't remember anything, and she was just really distressed, and I was like, oh no, what have I done?
I've broken her.
Yeah, so there's like my supervillain about to emerge from the shadows and be like, "I have you in my grasp, Mr. Bond." But then it's like little girl. Bad. Yeah, and they're all like in generally floods of tears, and they're all trying to comfort this woman. So I'm like, oh my God. So anyway, so then they have to like get through like a few traps, but the other thing was as well is that like not everyone had sort of understood the point that they were meant to wake up in this location. So some of the people in this event were still half the world away, and I'm trying to get them here, but they don't get it. And anyway, so they had to like open this door. By offering something important to this like big jug thing in front of the door. So they did that. And then they ran out. I had a whole bunch of other traps set up for them that they sort of had to fight their way through. But I was using like a ruined castle somewhere in Dorotar. And they came to this bit where there was like there's like a corridor on the top floor that has a hole in the wall. And I hadn't noticed this. So as they're running, somebody says, "Oh guys, why don't we just get out of this?" And they're like, "Yeah, let's do it then." So before I could even react as a DM, they'd all just jumped out the wall. And I was like, oh no! Oh no!
Defeated.
And then, and then like the poor lady, yeah, exactly, amnesia, like it was meant to be not like a. And then the poor lady who was really, really distressed, IC, was like, "I'm sorry, this event has been too emotionally traumatic. I'm going to leave now." And I was like, my like light-hearted Doctor Who style event has genuinely broken somebody's soul, and that stands as the greatest worst event that I've ever run. But do you know what? I haven't. That was a long time ago, and if I keep running, it can't catch me to hurt me again. Which is why I'm talking to you now, driving 90 miles an hour down a British motorway with like this event chasing me in like a car behind me. Yeah. Yeah.
Asmira, the question you asked kind of falls in line with our next one, by the way. Oh, sorry, you had more time.
My events are good now. I should just say my events are good now. Please come.
Honestly, we all had a bad start, to be fair.
Emotional trauma not promised.
What's been your favorite event to organize or host, and why?
Ooh, good one.
Or be at, even.
Ooh. I'll think of mine. I'll let you guys go first.
I have bad memory. Well, do you want to go, Meraki?
Or my worst event.
To be honest, I think it's the community events, actually. I don't know how many of you remember Wonder Spot Carnival.
I never got to go to that, and I'm still annoyed about it to this day.
I did a joint event with the counterpart, which is basically the Fable Wind Fair on Alliance, and we ran I think it was like a 3 or 5 day event for Wintersvale in Winterspring, and I think that was very kind of fun seeing everyone come together and celebrate this sort of winter event in WoW and do all these sort of events we had planned for them, really.
Yeah.
I think there's still a video Corona put together on YouTube somewhere if anyone wants to go look at that. that was ages ago. I'm old now. But yeah, that's probably my favorite event to kind of host.
My favorite event to host is honestly our tavern. It is a lot of fun still to this day. Almost 8 years in now, we get a lot from it. It's a laugh. And it's also super, super easy to run. I don't even know if you can consider it running an event because there's no rolling, there's no story. We just turn up and we serve drinks. But you know what? It's good crack.
If it's got drinks involved, it's an event.
Oh, damn it. I've been DMing for 2 years and I've never ran a single event because none of them involved alcohol.
Can't believe it.
Can't believe it.
Maybe that's why the other one went wrong.
Yeah.
If we had alcohol, it would have been a different story.
You could have just renamed it to the Hangover rather than Amnesia,
Yeah.
They all just wake up surrounded by a tiger and everything like that.
Ask me though, I can't think of my favorite event to. To be honest, I think I've enjoyed. I know this is a really cop-out answer, but I think I've enjoyed every event that I've run. But I've got some event moments that stick out for me. One event I did was they were in a really radioactive area, and I had a radiation system set up that as you went deeper into it, you'd acquire ever more exciting temporary mutations. And I just said you can come up with what you like, you know what I mean? Depending on what your role, depends on how severe it is. So it was just really, really funny watching the players come up with these really creative mutations that they'd have as we went deeper and deeper into this irradiated zone. I think one guy just straight up turned into a chicken. And we had to roleplay the rest of the event with that, and it was great fun. Another really favourite event moment of mine was another one where I had this villain set up. She was called Jack of the Green, and she was a kind of a Riddler trickster Forsaken, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And she was there to help. But literally, I must say, every single NPC in my events, good or bad, is a female Forsaken. You've never met so many dead women until you've been to my event. Maybe you want to use.
Go ahead. Sorry, you first.
Go on, dude.
I was going to say maybe you want to use my female Forsaken as a villain. She's captain of the Bloody Mary.
Yeah, I might do that. Seriously, people have genuinely asked Caitlin IC, how do you know all these evil Forsaken women? Why do they want to take over the world? I'm like, yeah, are they all your evil exes, and that's why they're all so mad at you? But
oh god, are you Scott Pilgrim?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, but one of the favourite events in another event around was it was setting. It wasn't set in Gilneas, but we used Gilneas, and we met this trickster Forsaken called Jack of the Green, and she was helpful but also annoying. So there were these things they had to overcome, these obstacles, and she was giving them riddles to try and solve them, and this one guy in my guild, this troll fella, one of the riddles was like, you'll find the key in a place that, and the key words in the riddle were frozen and blue. And the idea was that the key was buried in like a little building that was under the sea nearby the space I was using. But one of the troll guys got thinking, and then in character says, so he picked up my riddler Forsaken, and he bashed her into the gate they were trying to open. And out of character, I'm like, what are you doing, dude? And he was like, well, I was frozen today, and this idea came to me out of the blue. Bang! And I was like, you son of a... And technically, he'd gotten the keywords of the riddle, so I opened the gate for them. So yeah, that's my favorite. Some of my favorite moments are just seeing like how creative the players can be, like dealing with the stuff that you give them. Like, yeah.
And we're cycling back around to improvising there.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. Yeah.
My favorite events to be at is the ones that kind of has that heavy sort of story for your character, something that impacts them for like a long time. For like Ursia, there's for example, at one point in the Myrmidons event, we were kind of being I don't know how to explain it. Our captain died, basically, the first captain we had, and it was by another ship who was seeking to kind of enforce us into their sort of like working under them, basically, another crew. And we were kind of working our way to kind of combat against them throughout a series of events. There was one point where Ursula was kind of held down by this kind of whack job of a pirate, being forced to watch both her friends almost burn like at a stake, and she's still she had a part of her ear bitten off by that pirate, and that's kind of still stuck there. So it's like that you can still kind of refresh back to that. It's those sort of like few changes that kind of impact your character, really, that kind of sticks with me when it comes to like good events, because I like having that sort of memory of with another character or just personal character,
Yeah, it might be worth bearing in mind as well how going through the event, when you're creating it, how going through it is going to potentially develop your characters and the bonds that they can make together, and try and create situations, perhaps if you can, and it's a bit of an extra step, I feel like, make situations where they kind of have to help each other out, because that then gives them a bond creating, forging, strengthening situation that will then develop into more role play beyond the event itself.
Could even form into a budding romance.
Cool.
Hey. What's the best combat event you've been to, and why? I think I kind of explained most of the best combat events for me were kind of the ones where you had the freedom of expression to kind of roleplay your character the way they would be, within reason, obviously, because you're not immortal, you know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the kind of events that kind of stick out with me, really.
Yeah. Again, I haven't actually been to an event in so long because I only ever seem to DM them these days. But no, I do agree with that. I think the best combat events are the ones that although I think an important thing to say about combat in events, and I'm sorry if this is going off the topic a bit, but make sure that combat doesn't last too long, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Like at one event I went to a long time ago, and it wasn't one of mine, but there was this combat session. It was this one guy, and he was like a mini boss, but it took so long to kill him. And I think that like combat can be exciting, but if it goes on too long, it can get a bit draining, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So always have a cut-off point, or have a point where you're just going to let them win, or give them something that they can do to beat it.
Yeah,
it's something important that I would say. Yeah,
push stuff into their favor if it's taking too long as well. Maybe they've been rampaging around for too long, and a random like bit of the ruins kind of topples onto them or whatever.
Yeah, that old chestnut, absolutely. But I'd also, what was I going to say on combat? Oh yeah, but this sort of goes back to the role thing as well. Like the system I use, where it's just like roll over this to win. I don't specify how they win. I leave it up to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that means that if they do have a certain combat style, they can engage it how they want. You know what I mean?
So could I push the nuclear button then?
Yeah, of course you can, dude. If you've got one of the best combat evokes I've ever seen was at an event I ran where we were fighting some sort of like big evil corporation, and like I emoted that one of the bad guys threw a grenade and then they opened fire. So one guy rolled high enough to beat them, so he just leapt up, grabbed the grenade out of the air, and threw it right back. And I'm like, yeah, if you can give your characters your players the place to do that, I think that makes combat quite good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what about you, Meraki? Have you been into any combat events that kind of stick out for you?
See, we don't tend. Well, it would have been a long time ago because my character these days is not a particularly combat-heavy character. Back when I was playing my knight character, she's a soldier. The only one I can remember is the Borderlands, and that was pretty good because they had and it was quite a complex system. It did take a bit of learning, which I wouldn't recommend for off-the-cuff things, but it was quite a big one-off event thing, so it felt a little different, I guess. But it was pretty well done. It was pretty well organized, and it was pretty well run right up until the end. But it was pretty good.
All right.
Things had consequences. I think that was probably why it was like, and you could do things outside of the combat as well that would tip the scales in your favor or against you and things like that. So that's probably why it was good.
By the way, just to add on that, consequences are always the best thing to add into roleplay. At least I feel it is.
If you do run an event, just as me, I don't run an awful lot of events. I'm very bad at running events, actually. It's something I should practice. But if you do run an event, the best thing you can do, not the best thing, but one of the good things that you could do for the guys you're running the event for is have lasting consequences, something that comes back down the line about that event, because it'll make that event not only like a one-off standalone type thing, it'll sort of get them into the understanding that when they go to these things that you run, it's not going to be a one-off standalone thing, and it'll therefore make them more invested in what they're doing, because they know that down the line they could be getting a tap on the shoulder, be like, hey, you, I remember you.
It could be it could be like a Vanessa Van Cleef sort of thing where she kind of sees Edwin die, and she's come back later and become this sort of assassin who hates you, the adventurer.
I think a lot of the people that don't like roleplay events as much tend to not like them as much because they feel like they're standalone and like they don't have that consequence or grounding or investment, for your character. And if you can provide that, then you have conquered the one and only problem.
Yeah,
that is actually something to add as well. Not just consequences, by the way, it could be rewards as well. For example, with the Crimson Compass, I tried to give as many people a piece of treasure from like the Pirate's Trove, and that's something that kind of lasts down the line as I hope. Some of them being big artifacts, or some of them being as simple as like a lemon cape that summons lemons at will. But those sort of things are pretty cool to have.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I did. In those mini campaigns I mentioned earlier, where it was like one kind of event, like one event for a different guild every night. One thing I did is that at the end of every event, they all got like a MacGuffin that could help them in some way. And then like the quote unquote winners of the final event got like a special thing that they could like take forward. Like it might have been a really powerful artifact or like a stone that would grant them a wish or something like that. If that makes sense. Yeah, so that sort of stuff is really good. Or I think recurring characters are always fun as well. Like I remember in my guild, we once ran into this he was a Tauren, actually. I think the one character in any of my events that wasn't a female Forsaken was this Tauren guy, a grunt, and he'd had his memories wiped. It was another event like that. And they named him Big Guy. And he just kept coming back. He just became Captain Big Guy. And every so often he'd show up in an event like, oh, hey, Dust Devils, it's me. And,
Captain Big Guy.
Yeah, Captain Big Guy. They always quite enjoyed seeing Big Guy again. Yeah, and also recurring villains too.
Recurring characters, anything that basically gives them being there investment. They feel invested in the story, they feel invested in the characters, and they feel invested in what it's going to do for their development. And anything that snowballs RP from the original event, they win my gold stars of approval.
It's really fun to have these callbacks, really. Sorry, what was the next question? Did we answer did we answer the whole non-combat events? Caitlin, did you answer that?
Non-combat event? Ooh, which What was that question?
What's the best non-combat event you've been to and why? Actually, I don't think any of us have answered that because we kind of derailed.
Yeah, we have. Do you guys want to go first?
The first World Tournament.
Yeah.
It's non-combat because it wasn't fighty, and there was jousts and spars and things, but that's not necessarily why it was the best. I don't. But it was very well done.
Does it count if it's your own story, like story arc you kind of write for yourself? Because I kind of really like the sort of story arc I had, even if at times it didn't involve others, with my two characters, Ursia and Marcia. Marcia obviously being this mother, this ancient night elf who's kind of grown into this spiteful sort of person, hating all these non-elves and how they've kind of ruined Azeroth and everything like that. And hating arcane, Fel, all that stuff. Ursia obviously being an arcane user, they kind of had this thing where she wanted to, go back to, being family, but Marcia kind of rejected her, I still need to write this short, by the way. I think some guys want to still read it. Marcia's recently died, but it was a strong sort of point between a few characters of my own and others where she kind of was out for blood, basically. It involved a lot of conversation a lot of the times and stuff like that. A lot of the combat would tend to be off screen for that, but it was pretty fun for me, really, having the story development for my character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing. If characters are developing, people are invested. So if you can wrap that into things, you've won the equation.
Yeah. What about you two?
I did mine. So fire on.
You did. Look, I can't brag.
Well, actually, for this one I do, because I do remember ages ago I've entered. You know the Korsharg thing? I think what they call the Orc Guild.
The Red Blade. Orcs of the Red Blade.
The one. Orcs of the Red Blade, yeah, they actually ran one, and I went to that. I think not last year or the year before, and I remember they had an eating competition, and Caitlin entered, and it was technically illegal because she's dead, so she can't get full or drunk or anything, so she could just keep going. But yeah, that was really, really good fun. I remember that being very well organized and stuff. So yes, well done, Red Blades, if you're listening. Yeah.
Isn't there a special boost for Forsaken though? Because I know that the starting area, you kind of got this one Forsaken toying with it. That's if you make a monk, isn't it? Though I can't remember now.
Yeah, I don't know. I think so. I think there are.
I think there's a undead trying to toy with a brew that makes Forsaken drunk, to get that feeling,
Oh, there is Skull Shocker. Yeah.
He gives it to a Pandaren, and Pandaren just barely feels it or something. It's pretty funny.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why I have Caitlin looking so fresh, because even as a zombie, she drinks so much alcohol that she's basically pickled herself.
Sorry, you answered that. Okay. With big events, can the event organizer enjoy the event as well, or is it more running behind the curtains to make everything work and run smoothly?
Ooh,
I think it kind of depends on the person, really.
Yeah, I would say if it was me running a really big event, and I have I think the most people I've ever DM'd for is about 25 people at once, which I know is pretty small scale, but I know some people have DM'd for hundreds and hundreds, but I think when you're reaching that sort of level as the GM, I think you sort of have to sacrifice your enjoyment a bit to make sure that everyone else is having a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, this is just me being personal to me. Other people can disagree, that's fine. But to me, I think it's more about making sure that everyone else has a good time. And the reward for you comes from knowing that they've enjoyed it at the end. If that makes sense.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Honestly, a simple answer for me for that really is I can't focus on two things. So
yeah, I was gonna say if people are out there and they can actually concentrate on playing their character and handling organizing events and making sure the story's going, more power to them. Do that.
Yeah.
but honestly, I could not.
Yeah. Honestly, I wish I had your ability to multitask.
Honestly, I think you're better off just focusing on hosting an event though, because it can get
don't feel like you have to do both.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Absolutely.
If you want to prioritize something, prioritize hosting the event.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Right. What do you have to take into consideration when making your events, especially if you're making events for the first time? I mean, we
Ooh.
kind of spoke about general what to consider, but first time. For me, first time I was kind of thrown into the deep end, really.
Yeah.
So it was a matter of just going with the flow and seeing how you can improve the next time for me, really.
Yep. I mean, every event you run, I mean, like I said, I've been doing this now 2.5 years, but every event you run, you'll learn something. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And don't be afraid of that. But my advice would be for the very, very first event you run, maybe just take like 2 or 3 people who you're good friends with,
Yeah, keep it
and
small.
keep it small your first event. Yeah. And then see if it works. You know what I mean? And see what works, see what doesn't, and then change for next time and get bigger and bigger as you go on. I'm
Keep
sorry,
this,
I fallen off that roof we were on in the
no
stream.
problem. Also, keep it simple as well. I mean, if you want to kind of dip your toes into it and see what it's like, I'd say keep it simple to start with, really.
Yeah. If the question comes up, I do have a 7-step plan that I use for every event that I run, but like in a way to like set them up. But I think that might be another question.
I mean, you can go ahead and say it if you want.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Basically, my foolproof 7-step plan. I'm going to publish it in a book one day, and it'll like a self-help guide that'll make me a lot of money. But basically, what I do is like my 7 things is I'll go out into the world and find a cool place. That's step 1. Step 2 is fly around that cool place and try and find 5 or 6 things that you want to use as like story beats, if that makes sense. Once you've found those, come up with the plot of how are these things related. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
So, okay, so I found this cool place, and then within that cool place, I found these 5 things, and we're going to run into them in this order. And now, then you fill in the story. So you say, okay, why are we going from place 1 to place 6? What's in between it? And from there, sort of like, what I do is, the class trials you can use?
Yeah.
They are an absolute godsend for NPCing, because what you can do is you can just make a bunch of class trials and drop them down along the path that you want your character that the players will follow, and that way that's like quite good for NPCing, if that makes
Definitely.
sense as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, like class trials being an absolute. It takes. Don't get me wrong. It takes a while, but it's well worth it. I think it's a lot. You know what I mean? It is nice and immersive for them. And then once you've done that, so you've found your place, you've found your 5 cool things, you've written the story of how they get from place 1 to place 5. Then, as we said earlier, go back and then trace an alternate route just in case somebody is smarter than you, and and finds a different way to do it. And that is pretty much the method that I've used for pretty much every single event that I've ever run. And to be honest, it's not failed me yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Well, there you go. Right, I think we have 2 more questions here. Actually, 3 more, because I think there's 1 more in the chat. What's things you wish you knew before you started making events? How stressful it can be.
Yeah. How much I would age in these last 2 years.
Honestly, for me, it's not the event itself, but the OOC aspect to it and how I should have dealt with it in the past, and how obviously I'm better at it now because that comes with
Yeah.
experience. But that's a kind of aspect I kind of wish I knew how to deal with before I started making events.
Nah.
What about you two?
I'll try to think.
I see. I don't really run structured events.
Yeah.
Because I'm too scared. Honestly, I'm just too big of a wimp.
Oh.
And our hands are full enough running the bits that we do. What did I wish I knew? You don't have to please everyone, and trying is just going to be a recipe for success, because no matter what you do, there's going to be some people that just don't enjoy that kind of role play. So yeah. I would change how you think about it. Instead of trying to make an event that makes everyone happy, just try to make an event that you think is good. And the people that enjoy it will enjoy it, and the people that won't probably never were going to.
Yeah.
That is a fact, by the way. You can't please everyone, unfortunately.
Yeah.
The best you can do is try and accommodate people, really.
I mean,
I think it ties back into audience as well. Like,
yeah. And the thing is, like, eventually, even though you can't please everyone, eventually you will find people that you will please, and those are the
exactly.
people.
Consider it like an application process.
Yeah.
The people that enjoy it will hang around for next time, and you'll grow a group of people that enjoy the stuff you're putting out, rather than people that are not happy with it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Don't get discouraged by that, by the way, because again, there's an audience for everything, and unfortunately, sometimes the audience isn't for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, trying to please everyone will make your hair go grey. That's probably why some of mine have already gone grey.
Yeah. Yeah. Ultimately, at the end of the day, all you can do is make an event that you think will please the most people. You know what I mean? We've all got different tastes. We're all playing this game for slightly different reasons. But yeah, eventually, you will find the people that want to be there, and that's great. And if not, well, if some people don't like your events, no harm, no foul at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Although everyone enjoys my events because I provide I provide bribes, so that always works. Bribe them, provide a free.
You will like my events.
Bribe them.
Yeah, a free lunch. I will be your icy girlfriend. That always works. Yeah, a free lunch.
Yeah. Why do you create or / host events? Mine's as simple as just to tell a story.
Yeah, I think we covered that one at the start, didn't we? Yeah, it's about telling a story. Oh, someone's just cheered at me while I was running. Thanks, that person. Yeah, I feel so validated. I'm gonna call my mum. But yeah, no, it's that's exactly what it's about. It's about telling stories, having fun, and also getting people out into the world, getting them to use those places that they might not have otherwise used. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just about using your imagination, basically. Yeah.
Creativity is why I do it.
Absolutely. Creativity, yeah. Call me, Doctor Who people. I want to write for you.
If you're listening to this, come to the events and see for yourself.
Yeah, come to my events, Doctor Who people. They're really good. Better than what you've been putting out recently, huh?
Oh, no. I don't think that'll get you in their good books.
Yeah. Oh, wait, no, I'll take it back.
I really love your work, but I could do better.
I really like you, Chris Chibnall. Give me a call.
I imagine the same. I think the same is for you, Meraki, right? Just the creativity.
We just wanted to add something to the community. We felt like the tavern, like having a dedicated tavern that was run on the regular, would give people a place to like meet outside of their guild bubbles, because I know that tends to be a thing, and like no harm intended by it at all. People just happen to be role playing with their guild members, and that's how it goes. But we wanted to create a place where those people could all come to roleplay outside of that, and to meet people outside of that, and that it would help then generate more connection and even just more atmosphere within the city itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our final question. How do you tackle mid-event DM stress, where the times when anxiety unfortunately hits you in the middle of DMing?
Ooh.
I think I don't think that's happened to me whilst DMing, but if it were, I think your health and safety comes before the event, and I'm sure the people you're running the event for understand that. And if you have to take a step back and continue another time, I'm sure you can do just that. Really, for me, it's just that sort of really. If
you are going to run events and you find yourself in a position where it's starting to affect your health, if you're starting to have panic attacks or something like that, it is okay just to step back. At the end of the day, people on the other end of the computer screen are real people, and most of the time they will understand that. And if they don't, that's on them, not on you. If you need to step back, step back.
Yeah. You have every right to take a break when you need to take that break.
Exactly. Like, I mean, again, I'm similar to you. I've not remembered. I can't remember the last time I did get anxiety, but I can imagine if I did, what I would probably say is I'd try and like find a point nearby where the event could like come to a natural sort of end.
Yeah.
And then sort of like say, oh, we'll make this a two-parter. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be a very smooth way of rounding it out quite nicely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's it. Otherwise, and we kind of went over by 20 minutes.
Oh, whoops.
Oh, geez. Oh, quick commercial.
All right. So quick there's no straw poll this week because we're kind of doing the spotlights at the beginning of each month now, and obviously
So it'll be spotlight next week.
Yeah, obviously February is a shorter month, so next week is the next month.
Oh my god!
Already March.
I know. How was January so long and February so short?
I don't know.
Oh my god! It's nearly
what is
March.
time even anymore?
It's going to be Christmas tomorrow.
Oh no! I need to get shopping.
But yeah.
Oh my god! I'm nearly 30.
It's not so bad.
Soon it'll be 4 years away from me. My birthday's in April.
Would you like to do any plugs, Caitlin?
Any plugs? Yeah,
any plugs?
My favorite are British spark plugs. I like the health and safety. No, sometimes you've got to go for the obvious joke, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, hey, I know this really cool guild called the Dust Devils, run by this really cool guy out of character. He plays a character called Caitlin. Maybe you've heard of him. I don't know him, but I'm sure he's cool.
Yeah.
Was that legal?
So you'd like to get in on some of these mad events that Caitlin is running?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
They're on the side on AD.
Yep. If you've ever wanted to go to exotic places in Azeroth and then blow those places up, come join the Dust Devils, ladies and gentlemen.
Alternatively, if you want to get angry with someone, blame them for all the holes in Azeroth.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, according to Dust Devils law, Azeroth is littered with the wreckage of loyalist super weapons and all these villain things. You can't move in Orgrimmar now for the remnants of all these loyalist Death Stars we've blown up and things.
Otherwise, the usual here really. You've got the straw poll again will be next week. If you want to suggest events, you can do that on the Discord.
Yeah.
Which has been linked several times by Mr.
Bot. Thanks,
Bot.
Mr. Bot.
Mr. Bot, yeah.
He's doing a better job than we are.
Obviously, there's Patreon, there's Coffee if you want to support, myself. There's YouTube if you want to watch the prior, videos.
Yeah.
Also subscribe,
Yeah.
I believe that's it. I mean, you can ask us also questions on Discord and we'll try help you out.
That's not it.
No?
Because I've got a question of the week.
Oh, we finally remembered.
I remembered my one thing that I have to do at last. It's only took 3 months? All right, guys. This week is Love Festival inspired, okay? So what I would like to know this week is, does your character have a significant other? Are they married or with them? What does their culture even, what does that look like in their culture or to them? And if not, why not? Are they interested in romance? What about a potential partner interests them? So basically, I want to know about your love life in character. You can answer this for me in the question of the day, RP Talks question of the day channel in our Discord.
No, Katie, you can't ask my characters.
And then I will go on an emote in a reaction emoji spree.
Caitlin is married to Justice.
Now, if someone doesn't do that, I will be incredibly disappointed.
Well, there you go. There's your question of the week. It will be posted in the Discord. If you're not in the Discord yet, join it. Join it right now. I don't know what you're doing, but join it.
Yeah, listen, he's got me at gunpoint. Join his Discord, please.
I'm going to have Caitlin whispering everyone on Argent Dawn to join it.
Yeah.
Only then will I contact Doctor Who to, come hire him.
Oh, you've got me. Yeah, in your night terrors, you'll see the words "join my Discord" floating above your bed.
Yeah.
All right, friends. So we're back next week with RP Talks.
Spotlight night. So we'll be saying what the events are coming and, picking a guild.
Good stuff.
Picking a guild.
We do need a guild.
Hey, you can do my guild.
Can you hear the slight panic in our voice?
We kind of forgot to find the guild, but there we go. We have Caitlin next week.
All right, we have 7 whole dang days to find a guild.
We can do Caitlin if Caitlin wants to do a guild interview as well.
I can sit here patiently till next week.
Right,
that's fine.
We'll just have you wait
We'll
here.
literally keep them in a box until next week.
Yeah, okay. Well, Dust Devils next week then.
Hooray! Yay!
I hope you find that helpful, guys. If you have any other questions about running events or hosting any kind or anything of the sort, or any other roleplay related topic, do drop them in our Discord and we will add them to our topics list, or we will bully someone who knows more than we do into answering them for you.
Yep. Thanks for joining us, guys, and